Sometimes life goes a little off course. That's why you need a podcast host that can go a little off topic. This is the podcast that will give you straight talk about everything life throws at you. Welcome to another episode of Off Topic with Tom Powell. And here he is. This is Tom Powell.
How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Your name is Stein?
Stein. My name is Stephanie, but everybody just calls me Stein since I was a kid.
Okay. Is there a story behind that?
Like when I was younger, I was like super obsessed with space and physics and science and stuff. So my little friend Jolene would call me Einstein all the time. And then that shortened to Stein.
Right on. Are you still into that stuff?
Yeah, I am.
I have an astronaut coming up on this podcast in February.
Super cool.
He's a flight director at Mission Control now, but he was an astronaut prior, and he spent 6 months on the space station.
Wow.
Yeah, his name is TJ Creamer, and he follows me, and he's like, "Dude, I love your stuff," and I'm like, "My stuff? Like my stuff? Okay."
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be interesting. So I'm going to ask you a handful of questions, obviously, and because I want to know what it is that you do.
Okay.
And then what I do is I grab the audio and I put it on my podcast, which is over on Patreon, and then I'll grab like a snippet to throw up on TikTok as a teaser.
Cool.
I guess to start with, you're in Michigan, right?
Yes, we're in Detroit.
In Detroit. Do you work at just one clinic, or do you work at multiple clinics? You volunteer, right?
Right. We have
Okay.
a really special circumstance where we're at because where we began our volunteering, they actually had open commercial space. They had a storefront space that was open, and they let us kind of rent that at a really low price. So that would be our headquarters, and we are really loyal to them.
Okay.
But there is a clinic right across the street that we aim to go and help at too. We're kind of vetting that situation. And our ultimate goal, even though, yes, we only do work with that one clinic right now, would be to be able to spread out and do more.
Okay. So I guess what I should start with is I guess where I really should start is, what's the proper term? Is it abortion clinic escort?
Yeah, abortion clinic escorting.
So what does an abortion clinic escort do specifically?
So I guess that could be answered differently across the board, but what we really aim to do with our clinic escorting group is to maintain distance and space between the patients and the protesters, because the protesters can be pretty aggressive sometimes and pace them up the sidewalk. So what we try to do is use our umbrellas to kind of shield and create a privacy bubble for the patient, or, offer like words of support and dignity as we walk in, like trying to maintain a sort of how do I say this? Like a de-escalatory approach to maintaining privacy and dignity for the patients.
Sort of a safer environment for the people seeking the services.
Yes.
Yeah. So I see the videos on TikTok. Obviously, I've never had to deal with it in person. How nuts do those protesters get? Like, does it ever get violent?
Yeah, there has been some violence. We've had people break our umbrellas, like straight up grab our umbrellas. We've had somebody get hit with a pole that somebody had a sign, like a flag pole, and they hit one of our volunteers with that. We've had protesters hit volunteers with signs. They get pretty upset and aggressive. Yeah, they do.
Have you ever been assaulted doing this?
I personally was not, but I was with a friend of mine who was assaulted. And there's actually a video. I think my first viral video was of that, of him kind of checking her into a car. And I was filming it when that happened. I got between them. I actually stood between them so that he would get off of her. Yeah.
Jesus. which is the apropos word, because these are usually people that are driven by some form of religious objection to what's happening, correct?
Yeah, like their morality compass is pointed in the wrong direction or something.
Their morality compass. I think they're lacking a morality compass, to be completely honest with. How did you get into this?
I had a personal experience. I had gone to that clinic and I had been chased up that sidewalk. And so that sat really gross with me for a while. And I finally just called them and I said, would it be okay if I came up there and just tried to mitigate how many of these people get to access these patients? And they were really grateful for me like coming up there.
That you were chased up the sidewalk for going to seek medical services.
Yeah.
I'm assuming at that point in time, there wasn't such a thing at that facility as an abortion escort.
No, there wasn't, but there are in most, all the other clinics around us had escorts, but the ones right there were on 8 Mile. And like those two clinics right there, they're right next to each other, never had any. So I didn't know that till I called and they were like, we've been waiting for this. You know what I mean? Like we've been waiting for somebody to want to do this. And they were really excited to hear from me.
So that was going to be one of my questions down the road, but since you brought it up, do you work in conjunction with the abortion clinic? Do you work for the abortion clinic? Or is this something that's completely separate that the abortion clinic is just in favor of?
It's totally separate. They're just in favor of it. We aren't on paper on anything together other than the fact that we lease a space. But outside of that, no, we're just volunteering and they just welcome us to come. They let us on their private property.
You had mentioned 9 Mile. That used to be your name, right?
8 Mile. And so we just underwent like a change in our board. We started a 501c3 and then promptly had to restart and change our name and all kinds of stuff. There was a little bit of drama that we're not really being public about quite yet. Yeah, we had to rebrand. So for a minute there, I called us the 8 Mile Escorts before we came out with our new name, which is Choice Access Team, which is CAT for short.
Yeah, I saw the video of the cat. Is that your cat?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 5. Not to get off on a tangent, but my daughter, who's 19, is the cat lover in the house, and my wife broke me down and allowed her to get a cat, I don't know, a few years ago. And I was already retired at the time. My wife was working, my daughter's going to school. And so they dump this kitten off at home with me, and then they disappear. And this cat winds up, Freddie Mercury is his name. He winds up laying on my chest all day in the living room and following me around the house. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess you're not so bad. But I don't really like the black and white ones. I always preferred the orange ones. So I went and I got an orange tabby. And then I named him after a Grateful Dead song. And then my oldest daughter, who was still living here at the time, she goes, well, I want to get a cat. So she brought one home. So then we had 3 cats, and then my oldest daughter moved out, took her cat with her, and I was like, well, now I'm used to having 3 cats. So I went and I got a black cat, and then my oldest daughter moved back home, and my wife goes, well, now we got 4 cats. And I go, yeah, but we don't have a gray one. And so I went out and I got a gray one, and she's like, okay, that's enough. That's enough. And so now we got like we got a little starter pack. It's everybody's a different color. They're all music names, and none of them are allowed in here because I got too much shit that they can knock off the shelves. But I love the new name. I dig the initials because now my daughter has converted me into a cat lover. But getting back to what we were talking about, sorry for going on that, Dan.
No, you're good. I love it.
When you're doing this, so what we see from yourself as well as several other accounts that I follow that do what you do, and obviously YouTube videos and things of that nature. What we see your perspective, which is the protesters and what I call the right-wing religious loons. Because I mean, dude, you got to have a fucking screw loose to spend your entire day trying to harass people for just getting medical care. But we see that interaction. Do you find most of the patients are scared, indifferent? Obviously, there's no blanket, but what do you see most of? Is there a lot of fear in the eyes of these patients?
Yeah, I think they're not sure who's who at first. So we all look scary to these patients at first. they park and they don't know who we are. I think it becomes evident to them once they see the people with the signs and the things that they say, which are abhorrent. And then they see us saying, and we're wearing the pro-choice thing, and then we'll approach them and say, we're with the clinic. Can we help you get to the door without coming into contact with these guys? And you see them be less scared when they understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But either way, once they see anybody out there, they're just like, I don't want to deal with any of these people. And it's on us, the escorts, to kind of like make them more comfortable with our presence, to like let them trust us. Like, we're not here to hurt you or call you names. We're here to get you to the door. So yeah, that fear is there until they realize, that we're there to help them. And then
Do you see a lot of people come into the parking lot, see the whole scene, and just leave?
Yeah, that has happened. We don't see a lot of that. No,
Okay.
most people just tough it out. I mean, these people need to get the healthcare that they need, so they're gonna tough it out through this crowd of people. Sometimes it's a lot of people, sometimes it's not that many, but either way, it's just like one goon staring at you is enough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, do you fear for your own safety doing this?
Sometimes, yeah, I do. I wonder, especially during the fall of Roe v. Wade, we got some calls about there's people in the neighborhood who may be intending to do harm at your clinic and things like that. So I would go there definitely prepared for some type of harm to come my way. And I've had to like talk to escorts about what happens in case of, and come up with plans for, and all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah.
Now, I know that there's been a long history of abortion clinics getting attacked in this country. Has the clinic that you guys volunteer around, is there any history of that there?
No violent attacks, but that Rose group has been through, where they come in and pretend like they're patients. And like if they have like a rose, that's what we're supposed to watch out for, is people come up with roses. But they'll like go inside and get a bunch of them in there and then like proceed with their activism, which is really, I guess, it's not violent, but
it's sort of like occupying the space once they're inside.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. One of the things that I talk about is, for lack of a better way of putting it, the privilege of not having to deal with this shit. You know what I mean? Being a straight white man in middle America, like, you go through life, at least the early stages of your life, thinking that there's nothing wrong because you got no issues. Nobody's afraid to hire you. Nobody crosses the street when they see you coming. The doctors all believe you, and they don't think that you're lying. You don't have trouble accessing any kind of medical care that you need. Banks want to lend you. People want to sell you houses, all of that jazz. And then you go off like I did, and you get married, and you have 2 daughters, and you find yourself sitting at the kitchen table with your wife going, well, what do you mean the doctor didn't listen to you? It's like, they don't listen to me. She'll talk about her cardiologist or this doctor and that doctor. She's like, they're not listening to me. They're just telling me, oh, you're just calm down and your blood pressure will come down. I can't imagine just trying to go get something done. Like I've had it just in the last year. I've had my hip replaced, my gallbladder out, my cataract surgery. I can't imagine going for any one of those procedures and having to get harangued by people telling me that I'm going to burn in hell and that I'm evil.
Yeah. And like, especially at the clinic, that is such an issue because it's mostly men out there harassing these people who are, women, or at least assigned female at birth, and like, they really don't see the issue. They don't see the absolute need for this form of care. And they are just kind of in this bubble of why it's wrong and can't cross that line, break through that wall of like understanding that just because you don't have to deal with this or think about this, or that you think it's a moral high ground to not do things like this, like you're missing like so much information that you've closed yourself off to just by having this belief, because they're not going to sit and listen to many reasons why people would need that, like mental problems, bodily problems, all kinds of problems people have, or even just that abortion is the same thing as when you have a miscarriage and you have to have a D&C. Like there are so many reasons, even escaping domestic violence, for example. that somebody would need something like this. And they really close themselves off from being able to hear or understand any of that because they're, white men specifically who have never had to deal with any of that, or just any type of man, or even these women who haven't had those issues in their life, everyone putting their perspective or the way that they see things on an individual who they do not know. They have no idea what they're going through in their life. That is probably the most frustrating thing that I process while I'm clinic escorting.
Do the people that you provide protective services for, do they ever talk to you about the stories, the reasons why they're there? Do you get backstories on any of these folks?
Sometimes we do. We always tell them you don't owe us any explanation. You don't owe any explanation. But sometimes they do want to share. Like a lot of people want to say things like, I'm not pregnant. I'm just getting an ultrasound. Or like they want to protect themselves going in from having their dignity taken from them from what they're doing. Or some people will say, I just can't do it. I have 6 kids already. They're trying to explain to us what's going on, and we get it, but
they don't have to explain to you guys.
Yeah.
So do any of those folks, I guess, do what you did? I'm assuming because you had mentioned that you had a personal experience and then you became a volunteer. How many of the volunteers that you worked with were people that went there, saw what was going on, and was like, I need to be part of this?
Most, you mean like outside of me? Like I had the personal experience, and how many people that
as the escort, for lack of a better way of putting it, army grows. Mm-hmm. How many of those people are people that went to that clinic for whatever, just to get birth control pills, and was like, Jesus, this is nuts. I need to help out.
I think a few of them have been to that clinic specifically. A lot of them have been to a clinic or have had an experience, with protesters and things like that. But I think mainly most of our volunteers have found us through social media or even just driving by. We've had people stop driving by and then they come back, because they want to help.
I imagine it's got to be quite a scene out there.
It is quite a scene out there sometimes. Yeah. Especially on Saturdays. Oh my gosh.
So like at peak, so Saturday's your peak.
Mm-hmm.
At peak, how many abortion clinic escorts versus how many protesters do you think you got there?
Well, I would say on average, we'd have like 8 clinic escorts to 50 protesters.
Wow. That has to be intimidating sometimes.
Yeah, it really can be. We have a security guard. We don't. The clinic has a security guard now that works with them, which has been it. At least the security guard can keep them from like staying too close or intimidating and things like that. Like it does help a little bit, but it's still scary. Yeah, it's a lot. We started using a leaf blower to like drown out the noise. And
really?
We do our lawn care on Saturdays now.
Really? So are there limitations to what you can do and limitations to what they can do, legally speaking? Yes. I mean, obviously you can't have a Donnybrook in the street, but I have to imagine like they got to be allowed on, let's say, the sidewalk because it's public property, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Can you like interact with them on the sidewalk, or is that considered like harassment then?
We can. And in the beginning we did. We were a little bit more engaging in the beginning. Now we try not to use words. We try to just use noise, such as a leaf blower, because there's no logical conversation you're going to have. We try not to verbally engage with them at all. But you can. It's public property. We get away with the leaf blower because we have a rental space, and because the clinic allows us on their property. They want us to help them with their lawn care. So like, and we're not getting away with it.
Right.
We installed sprinklers because we need our lawn watered. Like, and we need to do it on Saturday because that's when we don't work. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So you guys do leaf blowers, and from what I can tell, a lot of umbrellas, right?
So we use the umbrellas for the privacy, to keep people from staring at the patients, and also just to like, I don't know, keep them away from us.
Yeah. Is it the same people all the time?
Yeah, like sometimes, like the daily regulars, like you see that old guy Tom on there. He's there every day pretty much without fail. If he's not there, we're like, did something happen? You know, like
So he's gonna go do a wellness check on Tom.
I know, so we got to do a wellness check or something. Like we're worried because he's there all the time with this other lady, Kathy, and like, yeah, they, I think, have like incentive from their churches to come. They might be getting paid or something. And then there's like another group that comes around called Love Life, and the leader of that is Roy Jr. He said he said a name so nice his father named him twice.
Forgive me for saying it. Fucking hilljacks.
I know.
Religious right-wing fucking hilljacks that God damn. Forgive me if you're a believer, but
I'm not.
It just drives me fucking nuts that you can't abort a fetus, but somehow if a doctor does abort a fetus, we just might have to kill the abortion doctor. It's like, well, isn't that some form of abortion too there, Cletus?
Wasn't that a fetus once, Cletus?
Yeah, exactly. Come on, man. So doing this, what is like the top? Obviously, you have to have a job, you have to live, so you can't do this full time. Above and beyond not having the ability to do it as much as maybe you want to do, what's the toughest part of actually doing it? Because I can imagine this means we're going into December, so you guys are going to be standing out there in the freezing cold, in the ice, in the snow, because they're not going to let up just because the weather's bad.
No, they'll be there.
Yeah, so above and beyond like elements and just being on your feet for a prolonged period of time, what's the most difficult part about this?
You know, especially when it's cold, it's finding volunteers so that some of us can have a break, because you're right, it's a work of labor and labor of love. I mean, and work of labor. It's so funny. Labor.
It's okay.
Yeah. Let me start over. In the winter, it is very hard to find volunteers because it is cold, and this is a labor of love. It is also hard to find like hot hands and like the supplies that we need. That's a challenge for us because it is so cold, but we do have that rental space that we are able to use this winter. So like, it's going to be nice for us. But, you know, I think the biggest challenge really is dealing with the witnessing that type of mentality on a daily basis. Being exposed
to that level of negativity.
Yes, being exposed to that level of like dissonance, cognitive dissonance, and the way that they have like that group think and they're all supporting each other, and there's no way you can chip at it. There's nothing you can do besides stand there and like put your body in between it. And like that is probably, at least personally for me, the hardest part about going there repeatedly, is that it's like just repeated trauma on the brain of like, this is really happening. These people are really real.
So by doing this, I'm going to assume one must naturally have to have empathy for other people. So in exercising your empathy for other people, but being exposed to the constant, I'm going to go ahead and call it evil of people who think that they can control other people. Has it made you question humanity? Has it made you question you know what I mean? Like, you still have empathy, but if you just let go, are we just fucking lost as a species?
Yeah, it has. Well, in this way that I do wonder, like, I do believe that love prevails. Otherwise, I don't think I would have it in me to keep working at it. But sometimes I just wonder, and it hasn't made me lose my faith in humanity, but it has made me question, like, can we tip the scales? There's so many of these idiots.
And they seem extraordinarily devoted.
Very devoted. But the thing that does bring me a little bit of peace in that thought is that those numbers are declining rapidly. You know, like, people aren't subscribing to the Christian church, you know, as readily as they did in the past. People are walking away from it. People are understanding that tithing is ridiculous, and, you know, that their communities are conditional, and they want
your generation. Wow, I shouldn't say your generation. Are you Gen Z?
I'm an elder millennial.
You're an elder millennial. Okay. You don't look like an elder millennial. Forgive me. You look more like my daughter, who's Gen Z. And it's that generation that seems to just have a completely different outlook on life. In talking to, I have I have a millennial daughter, 2 Gen Z daughters, and a Gen Alpha son. So I've spread it out over.
Good for you.
Far too many years. Far too many years. I am an old man at this point in time. But in looking at my Gen Z daughters, it's like, you guys really legitimately think differently than everybody else. They have a group mentality. I think because I've discussed this with I don't know if you're familiar with the TikTok account Cannon Fodder.
Oh yeah.
But I've discussed this with Cannon Fodder a bit. Because they've been raised in a school environment where a majority of what they've been doing has been like group projects, but they don't have the group project mentality like us Gen Xers do, where one person's going to do all the work, one person's just there to hang out, one person never shows up. They all legitimately give a shit because they all believe in the theory that a rising tide lifts all boats. And then they take that outside the school, out into their lives. And it's just a completely different way of approaching the world. And I think that once we get rid of the people who raised me, I was raised by a boomer and a member of the silent generation. Moment of silence. That was a hell of an upbringing. Let me tell you, once they all kind of die off, my generation, Gen X, will be, the grandparents of the world. I already am to 2 children, 2 grandchildren. I think you're going to see a significant shift in the way thinking in this country happens. As you said, we're already seeing a massive decline in people that are identifying as religious or at least participating in religious activities. We're seeing thousands of boomers die off every month while thousands of Gen Zers become of voting age. So you're seeing a political dynamic shift in the dynamic, as well as just an overall shift in the demographic of the country, the makeup of the country as it is. And you're not going to see, unfortunately, you guys are going to have to deal with it for a little bit longer because we couldn't keep the wrong people out of office. So you're going to have to deal with another Supreme Court for a generation that's all fucked up. But I don't think you're going to see moving forward people like Clarence Thomas, like some of these older justices that you see on the court, and that staunch way of thinking. Hopefully, anyway, you guys are able to kind of put right what we've fucked up, so to speak. But that was going to be another question I had. Was you had mentioned the falling of Roe. Did you see a shift in the attitude when Roe fell? Like, did you see them be more emboldened, come out in more force, be like, "Hey, look, motherfuckers, we got our way. It's our turn now."
Absolutely. Well, here in Michigan, Whitmer was able to pull some tricks out the bag. And we, now that I look back, I can't remember exactly the way that it went, but it wasn't. Oh, yes. Okay. So we had one of these, what is it? Like a law that was from like a really long time ago, like a zero.
From the 1800s. Yes. I remember. Yeah.
What was it called?
I can't remember.
Well, something where it could slingshot back to that way instantly, right? And that's what everyone here hoped for. But that didn't happen because Whitmer had put the squash on that before it could happen. And I know that our clinics shut down very, very briefly, or a lot of them did. But we didn't really face the same type of repercussions from that type of from the Roe v. Wade falling as other states did. But yes, even still, those protesters were out there just smiling from ear to ear. They had shit-eating grins. Like they were like, "We got you guys." They were definitely out there in bigger numbers too, just feeling very emboldened. Yeah. Well,
they fought almost 50 years to get that.
Yeah.
They pulled, like you said, or like you had alluded to, somebody else had alluded to in a conversation, my apologies, every trick in the book, including just denying justices and judges confirmation hearings. And I'm not just talking about Merrick Garland. I'm talking about the whole judiciary. Mitch McConnell spent 40 years trying to reshape the judiciary in his image, and he fucking succeeded. He succeeded. Mitch McConnell, for my own personal opinion, for everybody that's listening on the podcast, Mitch McConnell is a liquefied bucket of rancid dog shit, but he is a brilliant politician. He's a brilliant politician. He knows what he's doing.
Do you think it's him, or do you think it's the puppets with their hand up his ass? Like, I don't know.
Oh, it's a combination of both. It's because here's the thing: people like Mitch McConnell don't do what they do for 4 decades unless they're bought into the system. They're bought into that kind of thought process as well. Yeah, he's being driven by the money, just like when it comes to things like gun reform. People are being driven by the money. Money talks and bullshit walks. And unfortunately, folks like abortion clinic escorts, they don't have a lot of money. So to the people that matter, you guys don't matter, because you can't do anything for them. You can't put money in their pockets. You can't get them reelected. All you can do, quote unquote, all you can do is go out and help other people. And to those types of people, it's like, well, what fucking good is spending all your time helping other people if it doesn't enrich you? Right? Because the only enrichment that they see is the one that comes out of their goddamn wallet. And if they don't have the enrichment coming for their wallet, then they don't give a shit.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, and listen, you follow my content. You see what I talk about. You see where my political leanings are. That goes for people like Barack Obama too. Barack Obama was marriages between one man and one woman until he didn't have any more elections to run for. And then he conveniently evolved.
Yeah.
Because politicians cover their ass all the time.
Yeah, well, our 2-party system is all about the capitalism. You're not going to get anti-capitalism within that, and they're all going to be working toward rooting for that.
And it's all money based. It's all financial based. And anti-abortion activists, pro-gun activists, they're lobbyists. They will just flood the money. And what's really disgusting about what you guys have to fight is you guys have to fight tax-free money, because the churches are all tax-free. So all that money gets to flow in, and they get to send that shit out to where they want it to go to without the government ever putting their hands in. And if we could just get to the point where we started taxing these religious organizations, all of a sudden there wouldn't be a lot of funds for a whole bunch of people to be standing on sidewalks yelling at patients. And that's why you had mentioned earlier, people assigned female at birth. That's why I use the term patients, because I understand that not everybody going to get an abortion, and here's where the right wing's going to lose their shit if they're listening. They're women, even if they weren't born women. They're men, even if they weren't born men.
Right.
So you're saying that a man can give birth? Yeah, I'm saying that a man can give birth. And then they lose their shit. Well, no, you're an idiot. A man can't give birth. Well, obviously, I am not sitting here thinking that I, Tom Powell, who was born male in 1972, is going to squeeze a fetus out of my fucking urethra. I mean, come on. Fucking people are idiots.
Hey, this is a side note, though. They are fucking idiots. Hey, here's a side note. Did you know that there's a certain type of hyena that the women are, like, it's a matriarch, the girl hyenas or whatever, are like the providers and all this, like in the, they're the hunters and they do all this stuff, and they actually have grown what looks like a penis and they give birth out of it. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Well, now you know.
I need to look that up. Hang on a second. I gotta look that up, because
now you got to make sure that I'm telling the truth on your podcast.
Well, no, I might want to do a TikTok about it.
You got it.
Because I find it interesting. Like female lions, everybody thinks that the lion with the mane is the king of the jungle, but it's really not. The female lion is the one that actually rules the roost over there. Now I start to talk like my daughter. See, as you know, I'm just center left. I'm still a centrist. I'm still a capitalist. I'm still all of those things. And then I have this 19-year-old daughter who, when she was in 6th grade, looked at me and said, that the Supreme Court will only be perfect when it's 9 women.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, she is my little activist. In junior high, she went into the principal's office and bitched that the girls' softball uniforms were used and the boys' baseball uniforms were brand new. And God damn it, why can't the girls get new softball uniforms? And raised such a stink that she got new girls' softball uniforms, and then went to war on the dress code. And she went to school with a spaghetti strap. And why can't I wear a spaghetti strap? Because it's distracting. So I can't wear what I want to wear because the boys in the school. What'd you say?
Gouge your eyes out.
Exactly. So I may not be as progressive as the next generation, but I sure as hell produced one. I can tell you that. Even my millennial daughter is so far left, she makes me look like Henry Kissinger. Oh, she is violently left. Like, burn the system, eat the rich, tear it all down. Let's start tonight by killing every lawyer and banker in the country. Yep. Did you go to college?
I am currently in college.
You are current. What do you study?
Computer science. I'm going for ethical hacking. I'm a full stack JavaScript developer, and I want to go into cybersecurity.
Ethical hacking, which is what?
That is like penetration testing, trying to see if you can break through people's security barriers on the internet to try to tell them how to keep themselves safe.
Oh, okay. So my brain went completely somewhere else. When I heard ethical hacking, it was like, we're going to hack people, but we're only going to hack the bad people.
I think that would be so fun, but I'm, like, it's one of those things you daydream about because you were born in the 80s and you saw all the 90s movies about hacking and you really wish that you could participate in that, but I really don't want the feds at my door. So
yeah, jail is a hell of a deterrent still, isn't it?
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great. I mean, my daughter, she doesn't know what the hell she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to be a Supreme Court justice all the way until she got to high school, and then we sent her to I think it might have been changed to a STEAM school rather than a STEM school. It's a math and science academy where she had to live on campus. It's her choice. She wanted to do it. Then she changed and she wanted to be a pediatric neurosurgeon. And then she graduated high school. She's now going to UIC in Chicago, in the heart of Chicago. And she moved into the dorm, and within a few weeks, everybody was telling her that you explain things so well. You should really be a teacher. So now we're on the teacher track.
That's benevolent, knowing that teachers are treated like absolute garbage in this country.
They are. They are treated like absolute garbage. And maybe if we could fund teaching a little bit more, education in general a little bit more, we might have an opportunity to educate people who are misguided by several thousand-year-old book of fairy tales. Forgive me to anybody listening who's actually a believer of the Bible.
I'm not sorry.
Right. I know. It drives me fucking nuts. It drives me fucking nuts.
But you know what, to hear about somebody like your daughter, the way that you explained her becoming a teacher, that I think is what we absolutely could look forward to in the future, is that's what our teachers are going to look like. You know what I mean? Like, those are the people that are going to be teaching, raising up our younger generations who are about that community-based mentality, which I think is exactly where we're going as a nation, knowing that we're being kind of screwed over in every way, taxed here, everything's more expensive here. We can't make enough money to keep up with the inflation. It's like community-based or bust. And I think that's a really good message to send any children that are born from here on out. Like, hey guys, individualism it's not really working for us, is it?
No, it doesn't seem to be anymore. It worked for a while when growing up. Listen, I was born in 1972. I turned 10 in 82. I became of age in the 80s. You said you were born in the 80s. I became of age in the 80s. And that's what we were taught, go to work, get a job, work your ass off, save your money, buy a house, all of that good shit. And I went and did all of that shit after I had my crazy period too. I spent 4 years living out of a tent and hitchhiking back and forth across the country. I dropped out of high school. What?
I said, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that about me or not, but
no.
No, I dropped out of high school at the beginning of my sophomore year. I I hated school, and I failed the seventh grade completely. Had to redo it entirely. So I was actually a full year behind everybody I was in school with. Barely made it out of eighth grade. I think they got me through eighth grade just to get me the fuck out of there. I finished my freshman year of high school with a credit and a half. I didn't show up for the first 6 weeks of my sophomore year. And then I was like, well, there's nobody left to party with because everybody's in school. I might as well go see what this school thing's about. And I showed up, and the principal was like, yeah, you don't get to show up 6 weeks in and not make up a shitload of work. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really sound like something I'm going to be doing. So I'll talk to you later. And I left. I spent a couple of years kicking around the Midwest, and then I threw my thumb in the air. And in spring of '92, and I worked for a carnival for all of spring, summer, and fall of '92. And then I just kind of folded in following the Grateful Dead after that. And I followed them all the way to Jerry's death in August of '95. And then he died, and my way of life was blown up. And I was in the Chicagoland area, which was convenient because that's where I was born. They ended their, the last shows were in Soldier Field. So I found myself in the Chicago suburbs going, so what am I going to do now? And I got a job mowing lawns and stuck around, met my wife, banged out a couple of kids, and now I'm talking to you. It's wild how life progresses. You know what I mean? It's fucking wild.
Yeah, that really is fucking wild because it looks like, I mean, a lot of people are afraid to fly off the handle and live that loose life and like, what's going to happen? What are you going to do with your future? It's like, I don't know. I guess I'm going to figure it out, I also
yeah.
high school. I dropped out of school and, I did all kinds of stuff instead of schooling. I became a fashion designer. I went to New York Fashion Week with that. Like I did so many things before I ended up, founding this 501c3 with my group, with the board here, but like so many freaking things. And like, to be honest with you, I hated school too, which is crazy because I'm an intellectual as hell. And now that I'm going back to school, like straight A's. It's like has nothing to do, I don't think, with how smart you are or like how dedicated you are to your future. I think it's just like where you're at the time. And some of us just need to go and see about it and then come back with all of our knowledge, put it all in a pot, mix it together, and ta-da, here we are. Now
and not everybody needs to go to college. Some people need to learn on the job. I learned on the job. My father spent my entire youth telling me that the world needs ditch diggers. Basically telling me, don't think you're too important. The world needs ditch diggers too. And then I wound up being a fucking landscaper for 26 years. I wound up digging ditches,
You took Burn Through the Witches and Dig Through the Ditches. Well, seriously?
Well, that was beyond my time. I mean, I was much younger before. Yeah, no, that's young people music for me. I grew up on the tail end of the 70s classic rock era.
Yeah, that's
into when I came of age, it was 80s hair metal. It was Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Poison. It was
Kiss.
Get drunk, get laid, have fun.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't like Nirvana, because Nirvana came along and killed my entire music scene. And then everybody was what?
You don't like the grunge scene?
It's okay. But you see, the 80s hair metal scene was all about having fun. It was the time of our life. And then if I had stayed in school, I would have been class of 91. And then we get out of high school and along comes the grunge scene, and everybody's salty and pissed off at the world. And I'm like, what happened to having fun? And they're like, having fun? The world sucks. And I'm like, yeah, the world sucks. But that's why we got to have fun, because the world sucks. And they're like, no, we got to change the world. And I'm like, fucking change the world. Who's got time for that? I'm gonna take off. I'll be
and like, look, we waited too long. We're trying to do it now, and now we're fucked, so we should have been listening to Nirvana.
I know. It's my fault. Blame it. I'll take all the blame. I'll take on behalf of Gen X, I'll take all the blame. So, TikTok. How has being on TikTok changed what you do, changed your life in general?
TikTok, I think, has been really cool for being able to reach people who I couldn't otherwise reach on Instagram or Facebook, because you don't have to know anyone. Like, the algorithm helps people find you, and it really helped us get what we were doing out there enough to find resources, support, words of encouragement, just like a community for what we were doing. And we were able to make connections with other people who were doing the same things elsewhere, kind of forming a backbone for clinic escorts across the nation. And I think that has really changed the game for us. TikTok has in that way. Also, like if we have a viral video, we might be able to put some money into the organization. And what else? Oh, getting the people who we put on our TikTok. I'm so silly. I have ADHD, so I have thoughts within thoughts within thoughts.
Just right on.
But the people stop coming to the clinic once they think it's all fun and games. They don't realize that we have a TikTok account where like millions of people see what they're doing. And like, I think that people from their families stuff see them on there and then tell them like, what are you doing out there? Because once we get someone on our TikTok and people see it, they stop coming to the clinic. Like, we've had so many people just laugh in our faces about our TikTok, make fun of our TikTok money, and then that we just don't see them again, because I'm quite sure that either they see the video or someone else tells them they saw it and they're like, oh God, they're humiliated. So it's helped us expose people. It also helps us track who's been where. Like you were asking me earlier, you know, is it always the same people? No, it's not. There's people that travel the country doing this to clinic escort or to clinics around the country. So we're able to see like where they're going by sharing this online. There was that Kale guy and his whole family. They got arrested for like violating the FACE Act, which is the act that's meant to keep people away from, they're not allowed to block the entrances to clinics. And so they were doing that. We were able to kind of figure out where they were at doing those things. You know, it provides a lot of proof. Like,
it's an amazing platform. It's an amazing platform. I mean, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I didn't think I'd have 1,000 followers on there. I'm just some old fucking dumbass with a big gray beard, and all these people are like, yeah, we want to hear what you got to say. It's an amazing app, and so for somebody that actually does good in the world, I can imagine it's quite a networking tool.
Oh yeah, it is quite a networking tool.
Yeah.
I think, and just back to what we were saying about community-based thinking and like the younger generations being very community-based thinking, we're able to see the impact of when we find each other and work together for a greater cause. And you just feel a lot less lonely out here when you see that you really do have community.
This has been a fantastic conversation, and I want you to tell everybody how they can find you, get in touch with you, and more importantly, if you can, since you're now a 501c3, donate to you.
Yeah.
Whether it be in cash or in items that you need.
So you can just simply find us on TikTok at Choice Access Team, or you can find us on Instagram at Choice Access Team. We have a website, choiceaccessteam.org. You can email me at admin@choiceaccessteam.org. And if you go to any of those places where I told you to go, you will find ways to donate. You will find ways to participate, volunteer, anything that you want to know about us.
That is fabulous. Stein, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. I was really excited to talk to you.
Keep my phone number. If you ever need anything, call, text, shoot me a message or whatever the case may be. And we'll talk again on TikTok soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, Tom. I'm such a fan.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.